we talk, and Jimmy, you know, goes around the world talking to really smart people that I don't even understand half the time. You know, he comes back and he says collaboration is becoming more and more important as more billions of people get connected. And at the end of the day, wikis are a way for people to collaborate. And that, you know, to Jack's point, the social element of the software is very advanced. The user interface is horrifying. And so our job is really to sort of clean that up a little. And we've done some of that, and we open source most of what we do, so it's available to others. But I'll give you an example of an interesting experiment. We, you know, wikis get started by one person, and they start going, and they work really hard for a long time alone. And then eventually people come in and join them, and I kept saying, boy, if we could just make it easier for people to do something, to leave that grain of sand, right? If you compare a wiki to bookmarking something with Delicious, or uploading a photo with Flickr, I mean, starting a wiki is really a pretty insane level of commitment. So we launched a Wiki Q&A product where the only thing you have to do to contribute is ask a question. Type in a question, click ask, right? And that has been explosive for us. So yeah, much like any web product, I think one of the core answers is you need to reduce the barriers to contribution. You need to make it easier for people to get involved. And this was a bit of a surprise to me, but if you've read a lot recently about getting people to make choices, there's been a lot of research recently that giving someone 50,000 mutual funds means they never invest their 401k in anything. But if you give them 5 choices, they can kind of figure that out. So with our Q&A product, we've got it to the point where you only have to do one thing, just ask a question, right? It's very simple. And we're seeing 20% a week growth in our Q&A product, and we've just launched a beta where if any of you are interested, we're now offering Wiki Q&A to anyone who wants it for their site or for their community. And we have a bunch of entrepreneurs running around doing that, and it's fascinating to see how much faster these entrepreneurs using our beta product get their first contributor, because you don't have to open a page, figure out wiki text, figure out where to put something, or to David's point, earlier we were talking, it's a lot easier to comment than to edit somebody's work. Well, it's a lot easier to ask a question than it is to edit somebody's work. And so, I think what both David and I have seen is that if you can reduce the barrier to that first action, you get a tremendous amount of opportunity. And to Jack's point, wikis are really the furthest end of that from the first contribution, which is, I am going to found something and be the visionary of it and be inspired enough to work on it for years to come. So I think we're sort of the penultimate version of user-controlled media, right? We're at that far end of people who are so empowered that they yell at me all the time, and I have to listen, because they're right, usually.
From our direction, which is a lot more about private groups collaborating, we see the wiki philosophy being applied within an organization. And in some ways, these thoughts aren't new. This is what Lotus was trying to do and kind of failed at, was you start with the work product itself that the group is working on. And the work product is the wiki. And then for us, the next step from that was to schedule how that work was getting done. So we had to tack on some project management features, which if those of you who follow PBWorks know that we did a couple months ago. And that was actually very, very helpful, because then instead of switching back from Basecamp to PBWiki, you could now do it all in PBWorks. And so then the next part of that is, what are other ways that people want to go and work together on content? And an obvious way is that people meet about it. And so in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be seeing PBWorks launch a lot of fairly innovative stuff to help people actually synchronously discuss the work that they are advancing. So you've got the work product, the schedule for the work product, and the discussion about the work product. So it ends up being a fairly comprehensive vision of how work should happen. It much more collectively, much more ground up, and much more Borg-like. It's focused on the work itself. It's focused on the product of the group, rather than focused on an individual person's inbox.
So how do you make any money on this stuff? I mean, let's take your business. I mean, come on, wikis are free. I mean, I don't pay for music. I'm not going to pay for my wiki, right? I mean, so what's your plan? I mean, what do you do about that?
For us, it comes down to business value. I mean, if we are how a company is getting their work done, $20 per user per month is a rounding error next to what they're paying people. And so in that sense, it's very similar to the Salesforce model where you wildly overprove your value in terms of how much people are able to get done. And you find a couple wonderful niches, like lawyers, by the way, if you go and you check a wiki, that's considered research, but if you check your email inbox, that's considered communication time, it's non-billable. So I mean, you make back the cost of the wiki in your first couple of minutes using our product. But our job is to prove real business value to groups, which is a little bit different than the business challenges that the gentleman to my right face. But we think we can do that pretty compellingly, and as we're advancing the product, that becomes just stupefyingly clear.
Other thoughts on, is there really revenue here?
Well, I'm certainly not going to say that we're the best practice for revenue generation. We're definitely not. I can say we've done one thing that's unique. We've innovated one thing on the advertising side that I think we were the first ones to do. If you go to WikiHow, we just show Google ads, and below the ads there's a little button that says hide ads. And you can click that button and the ads go away. And what I think is really cool is it didn't hurt our revenue at all. But it really helped people say, wow, this site is really cool. They're not trying to shove ads down my throat. I'm more likely to link to that site. I'm more likely to go here. I'm more likely to tell my friends to go here. And as entrepreneurs, I don't know why more sites haven't followed this, because it hasn't hurt our revenue in the slightest bit. It's helped our page views. It's helped get people to be more excited about our product.
Wow.
We're not quite as good. We actually say if you log in, we'll turn off the ads. Remembering that on most wiki sites, log in means give us no information at all other than a username and a password. So we have a very modest requirement before we turn off the ads. But I think both Jack and I are in incredibly simple, boring, Luddite businesses, best described as the magazine industry. Right? We attract a very large audience. He has about 20 million people. I have about 20 million people. We sell ads, and as long as you can cover the nut of paying for your infrastructure, it's pretty easy. So the real question for me is not, can these be real businesses, but are we building the local coffee shop? Are we building Pete's, or are we building Starbucks? And that's really just a question of how big can it get and how much do people care. And unfortunately in the media business, there's a stair step as you get to scale. And so when you're small, nobody cares, and when you're medium, a few people cares, and when you're large, everyone cares. And so Jack and I are both in a forced march through the winter trying to figure out how to get to large. And we both seem to have done a decent job getting there, but there's more to come.
So do folks know how much traffic from Google goes to, like, let's say Wikipedia? People have a sense of what percentage of their traffic clicks to Wikipedia? Any guesses? How much?
10%.
10%. So so ComScore reports it's at least 3%, and I've heard from internal Google sources as high potentially as 10%. But that's a lot, right? I mean, think about that much traffic going to one site from one location. If you search for how-to, if you search for the subjects that these guys cover, pretty much they dominate the top of the results for the topics they cover. Does anyone know the history of Wikipedia in particular? Does anyone know the name Nupedia? Is anyone familiar with that? Did anyone ever use Nupedia here? Do you know? So Nupedia was the predecessor to Wikipedia. Do you know how many articles that they had in a year they generated? About maybe 20, somewhere around that. Jack, do you remember about how much it was?
About right.
About 20? 20 articles in 1 year. Then they added a wiki. They added the wiki technology. They got slash-dotted pretty much like in their first month or two of operation, and then they were doing something like 20,000 articles a month right after that, somewhere around there. So I think the thing to think about here is while it does take some time to relentlessly march up here, the power of the user-generated content is, I mean, pretty phenomenal, right? Because in essence, it's this infinitely scalable resource for you because you don't have to pay the people who are doing this work. They're doing it out of, mostly out of passion or out of direct benefit they get out of it. I just thought that was pretty interesting that, that these businesses grow. And yeah, go ahead, Gil.
There's a very interesting counter to that. So the first wiki launched on Wikia in November of 2004 was called Wiki Answers. And when I started looking at it 4 years later, the end of 2008, after 4 years of work, they had 43 questions and about 12 answers. So apparently wikis don't work for everything. And when I looked into it, it turned out it took you about 6 clicks to ask a question. Seems kind of dumb, but you know, what the hell do we know? So one of my engineers got in a tiff with somebody and ended up canceling his Christmas vacation and looking for something to do. So between Christmas and New Year's, we relaunched this Wiki Answer site. And the first day after we put a software on it that let you ask a question with 1 click, we got a question a minute. So we went from 43 questions to 3,600 the first day. So again, I go back to, you know, wikis are good for some things, they're not perfect for everything. Really what it's about is how do you make it easy for people to contribute? And how do you make it easy for the heavy person to, you know, this sort of uber process person within the company or the super how-to user, how do you make it easy for them to manage their workflow while at the same time making it easy for the new person to just come in and do something? And you know, clearly Wikipedia has done a stunning job, but you know, if you talk to Jimmy, what he'll say is, you know, 2 or 3 years in, Wikipedia had done an amazing job of documenting the Lord of the Rings and a terrible job of documenting Africa. And he's like, kind of not what an encyclopedia is supposed to be good at. And it turned out getting people to document Africa was a lot harder. And so I think, you know, if you go back to Jack's comments, the usability to get more and more people involved is really one of the things we're all focused on. And our Q&A product is one of the ways we're trying to do that by letting anyone get this huge SEO game going, you know, at a cost of 0 by just letting people ask and answer questions.
Cool. We're going to do one last question, then we're going to start the table conversation. Can you share an example of somebody who was not quite the model citizen in your community? You don't have to name names, but maybe some story or anecdote about a troll or somebody who was devastating to a community, but funny at the same time. So I'm going to just leave it at that, and maybe you think about, yeah.
There's a guy in Texas, unnamed, who we actually mailed a troll to with a little PBWorks t-shirt on. He took great pride in it. It's amazing when you cast a broad net out to the internet, and you guys must have seen this even more than we. You catch some really crazy people, and these people are passionate about you and passionate about your brand, and they're passionate about you listening to what they have to say and doing it. And it's really hard to distinguish early on the extreme early adopters, early evangelists, right, or whatever the lingo is, from these kind of early trolls, because they're both equally passionate about, like, I love your stuff, I just created 40 wikis yesterday, and you know, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, damn it, you need to fix this. And you get back to them the next day, you're like, great, thanks for your feedback, I fixed points 1 and 2, point 3, I'll look at getting to next month, and point 4 is in the loony bin, we're probably never going to go and fix it. And then they just keep needling you about this, and then a year later they're like, you know, you haven't done this crazy ass thing that I asked for, and it becomes increasingly difficult to tell them they're crazy. And then you try to move to open forums, things like, how many of you guys use Get Satisfaction? Yeah, it's pretty cool piece of software. One of the things that we found that was difficult, particularly as we went into the enterprise market, was that the fact that it's all open, the fact that it's all egalitarian, means that like somebody who's looking to use a wiki at FedEx goes in and has some questions, and they just see random flames from people, or they ask a question and they get flames back from crazy users, and that's not really an acceptable enterprise support experience. So we kind of had to change tags as a result. And actually, again, this same person will go unnamed, but Get Satisfaction had to implement banning for the first time to ban this PBWiki user. It was that egregious.
And that user was Dave McClure.
Hey!
Probably was.
Can you give him a feature, damn it?
So I'm thinking of one of our users who ranted quite a bit, and ranted particularly anytime the site was slow, with comments like how he had 25 windows open to be able to constantly click a button and then move on to the next window because it took that long to get our site up. He ranted all the time. He pissed off our co-founder and head of customer support on a regular basis. He went to the user convention and ranted pretty much the whole time. But I will differ from my friend here and say, you know, as an investor, one of the things I look for in a company is, are people angry? Because if they're angry, they care. So what I'd hate to see is apathy, right? Trolls are good. Trolls mean somebody gives a shit. So, you know, I tend to be a little, you know, I don't necessarily walk with the crowd on all these things. So this guy was a complete nightmare. We hired him.
Wow!
And it turns out he's a complete nightmare still. But now he's ranting with power, which is much more exciting.
One thing I learned early on with managing a community is don't feed the trolls. So I'm not going to give the troll who's watching on Ustream right now the satisfaction of hearing me talk about him. But I will talk a little about crazy edit wars that happen on WikiHow. You know, there's always the stupid battles between, should we call it potato chips or crisps? Should we spell color C-O-L-O-R or O-U-R? The battles between English and British spelling. And one thing that's going on right now, there's a raging debate right now going on WikiHow on the pro-pet rock people and the anti-pet rock people. Should we have an article about how to love your pet rock or not?
And let's just call those two people Brian Phillips and Dan Olson. Excellent. Excellent. Awesome.
Wait. I gotta say one thing about this though, because this happens all the time in Wiki world, where there's a huge fight over something, and this goes back to my point where trolls are good, right? Which is, it's all about context. So we had a huge fight in our Star Wars community over whether or not fan fiction was appropriate on Star Wars, and I'm getting, you know, the whole download on this from my team, and I'm like, let me get this straight. There's a big fight between the people who are factually documenting the fantasy movie and the people who have fantasy stories about the fantasy movie. Why can't they all just get along? But to go back to trolls are good, because I'll keep playing the contrarian here. We created a Star Wars fan fiction wiki, and now they're all happily documenting characters that don't exist on the universe that doesn't exist, and that's all good. And so we were actually having this discussion today, actually, believe it or not, it happened this morning, because our Q&A site page views went up 80% yesterday from the day before. And so we're all running around going, like, what did we do right? Because we rarely ever do anything right. And a whole bunch of people came in and they're documenting the answers to crossword puzzles. What's a 4-letter word for who cares? Right? And so we're having a whole discussion about, like, are they trolls? Or is this okay? And of course, you know, and the conversation actually moves to, maybe we should create a crossword puzzle Q&A site and let them go do their own thing, and they'll be happy there and doesn't piss off people. So, I go back to, because, funny enough, I actually had a reporter accused me of being a troll a couple months ago, and I looked at him and I said, actually, you're right. Like, I got too passionate about something I was doing, and I started behaving badly. And I think all trolls are just me. They're some dude who's really passionate about something and gets a little whacked about it, and needs someone to sort of either walk them off it or give them a place where they can just go crazy with it. So I say love the trolls and give them a place that they can call home.
So Dave, you now know who Anonymous is on your blog. Anything else that we want to recap? Are we all good? All right. Awesome. Hey, by the way, actually, is anyone hiring here at all in your various companies? Okay. Jack, what are you hiring for?
I desperately need a web dev, CSS guy, just for like a project. I'll borrow your best guy just for like 2 months. I'll give him back, I swear.
And in exchange, he'll give you the best link juice of your entire life. So that's a great deal there.
Where to start? We are hiring in web dev and CSS, so come work for us and then help Jack. We're hiring a head of our US engineering team. We're hiring in ad sales. We're hiring in community. We're hiring in marketing. We're probably going to double the size of our team in the next 90 days. And in our spare time, we're looking for people who want to either start a Q&A site and be an entrepreneur on their own topic they care about, or existing publishers who want to add an amazing SEO juice generator to their site where we can run Q&A sites for them.
We're looking for support people, so people who are passionate about making groups work together better. Right now we have 2 support people supporting about 3 million people a month. That's a pretty good ratio, but I think they could use a third hand. So we'd be happy to have you as our third hand. And we're also looking for a user experience researcher to make sure that the future of work is a usable one, as our business kind of rests on that.